I'm Mark from The Analog Process. Hey guys, it's been a while since I've done a video, but with the quarantine, with COVID-19, I thought I'd make an analog process video and tell you guys about this work that I've been making. And specifically what I want to cover today is the process of starting a new project and seeing it through. How do you start a new project? How do you push your boundaries? How do you push the work to another level? To illustrate that, I'm going to be sharing a project that I've been working on. This is kind of a print behind me, and show the evolution of where the project started and how it started and where it is today. So with that said, I'll give some background. In 2018, I went to Japan. I was there for grad school. The class and I were all meeting there to be in courses. When we weren't in class, I would walk around with my Mamiya 7 and just snap pictures. And I didn't really know what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for anything. So the thing is, with any kind of art project, sometimes you might know what you're going after and then you go out to take the pictures of it. And sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes you go out and it kind of introduces itself to you. In this project, that happened to me. What I thought the work was about, I realized wasn't what the work was about at all, and it took me somewhere else. It's hard to know whether you should keep pressing forward with a project or whether you should pivot. And the only way to really know is to give yourself enough time making the work and stepping away from the work and coming back to it. When I was in Japan, I kept seeing that people were leaving the garage doors open. I would go there at night and walk around and have my flash, and I started taking pictures of the open garages. Looking at the images over that 2-year period and really sat with them and reflected on them in a passive way. And for me, what I was seeing was what people keep in their garages. Right, which is such a simple thing, right? It's almost stupid in a way. When I started really reflecting on that, it was kind of a profound question. You know, people keep in their garages the desires and passions and interests of their life that never manifested. You've always wanted to make art, and it's so important to you. Years go by, you never do it, and finally you're like 30 and say, okay, I'm gonna follow this passion that I've had since a kid. You get your tripod, you get your equipment, and then COVID-19 happens, and you're worried how you're gonna pay rent, and then the next emergency happens, and you have kids, and you're taking care of kids, and all of a sudden life flows by, and the garage becomes a repository of all of the desires and passions and dreams never came to be. And there's something sad and beautiful about that. In any event, it became a portrait of the things in life that we lose. And to me, that was so much more touching and interesting than these heavy political issues that I was trying to force on the work. I would have never gotten to that point if I was just in a mode of shooting, and not giving myself a really long block of time to let all the layers that I settled on it clear away. After you start your project, bake into it that you're gonna take a long time away from the work, almost longer away from the work than you're putting into the work. Then you need to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, well, here's what I actually see in the work. What's not working? So for example, in my images of the garage, like this one here, the image is out of focus in the back of the image, so you can't really get a sense of that space. The color is off and it looks faded. All of these things are distracting to the work. I know that if I made it perfectly straight, where it became almost like a stage, I could really experience what is happening in the space and start talking and thinking about the connections. But as it stands, it doesn't work. So with me, in this case, I knew that I needed different equipment. I didn't want those harsh shadows that you get from having a direct flash right on the top. I wanted the image to feel like it had more life. With all that said, I got new equipment and I went back to Japan and I started working on the new version of the work that came from this old experiment. There's a certain amount of letting go of your ego to say, yeah, all the work I've been doing for the past 2 years is meaningless and it's an experiment, right? It's not meaningless, but that's part of the path, and redoing it all from the ground up. It kind of sucks in a way because you're losing all your work and you're never going to put it out there. No one's going to see it, but you want to give yourself distance from it and permission to let it go. So you can see with these new images where they're coming from. You know, when you first start a project, everything is open, everything's available. And then as you get further along, you start to condense the cone. And the cone condenses more and more, and then you step back from the work, and then things open up again, and then you shoot, go out, and the cone gets smaller. It's like this zigzag that always gets smaller, like a Christmas tree. And that's sort of the process of making work for a long-term project. I'll do another video, by the way, about this body of work and my experience making it. It was very difficult and very scary. Turns out people don't like when someone is outside of their house photographing into it at 2 a.m. in the morning in Japan. When I got back to America with all these images, the next step was, again, getting them on the wall. And that seems easy, you know, you just make some prints, but everything affects the work when you read it. It's not just the image itself, but also, you know, whether you leave the border on the image, how much of a border, whether you print it kind of heavy or you print it very light, what kind of paper you use, all of that affects the image. And I found that the paper that was kind of heavy and luster, when I put it on the wall, had an effect of being a painting. It looked very much like a painting. In fact, when I had friends and family come over, some of them looked at the work and thought that they were paintings until I corrected them and said that they're not paintings. And I liked that idea of them being a painting. I liked it being something that was constructed, was something toiled over, just like the process of making the images. And I liked that the painting was based in fiction. It was something that is something in the mind rather than being a document, right? So for me, that paper made all the difference for the project. When I go back to Japan next, which was supposed to happen now, but because of the corona, it didn't, when I go and make the work might take another change. I'll say one last thing as far as knowing when to end the project, because this is not done. Everything could change. I remember that Michael Wolff once said, this isn't an exact quote, but when you think the work is done, give it another year, because that's when things get interesting. And had I come back from Japan in 2018 and took all of these images that are shot on the Mamiya and are only an exercise for the work that came recently, if I had stopped there and just printed a little book and sent it out on Instagram, the work would have not been interesting. The work would have come to a conclusion prematurely. I tried to do this video in a way that wasn't just me saying like step 1, step back from your work, step 2, do this, step 3, like whatever. I tried to make it more tied to my own work to bring you through my process. Your process may be completely different. And if it is, let me know. Post in the comments. I'm curious what process you go through for your work. And if you're new to photography or analog photography or art photography, also let me know if you have a different process or if this video was just helpful and you liked it. By the way, I created a Facebook group for people that are interested in photography and art. So that link is in the description. I think it's called Analog Process Collective or something of that nature. So I'll see you in that group. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and like if you like this channel. And if there's any content or any specific videos you'd like me to cover in the future, please let me know. I'd love to see. Okay, thanks so much.